Hey there, Void. Alrighty, so this is the last one in my not A collection before I really get back into pushing forward. And this is because my partner, we do some series watching and we finally got through one. And by got through, I mean this one goes like that. Because once you start this series, you gun it. It's every time I've seen this. And I've seen this series many times. And every time it's a killer. And that is Baccano. So, Baccano. This is a hard to describe series just because there is so much going on. I think the first episode kind of sets that kind of tone because it's pretty much about two people who work for the newspaper discussing the events of pretty much the rest of the series. And about how it's very difficult to determine when the story actually begins, and who the main character is, and why they would be the main character. It's rather on the meta side for that, but it still is set in the world, so it makes perfect sense for the newspaper guy to be talking like this. So, okay, I'm going to do my best to explain the plot of Baccano. So, it's a kind of a intercession of many different characters' lives throughout in the 1920s, and add a bit of alchemy and some immortals, and you got a recipe for chaos. So, and since the series is so divided up, it's really difficult to describe who is the main character because every character is important at one different time or another, and we are following a different one throughout it. But there's a couple different plot lines that kind of go through. The first is kind of a gangland, because so many of them feed into other parts of it. It's kind of hard to just pick one part to start talking about. Okay, so I suppose part of it deals with I guess we'll start at the Immortals. So the Martello family is inducting a new member into their ranks, Firo Procineso, who is one of our potential main characters. However, he's he's getting involved in that, several other incidents are going on around the same time. Namely, Dallas Genoward, a local scumbag, is causing havoc for those around him, including stealing a bottle that he thinks is booze, but actually contains the secret of immortality. And that bottle changes hands several times as he goes to war, essentially against Firo and his and also tries to turn the tables on the Gandor crime family, who is an ally of the Martellos. So they're all so there's kind of a plot line there about where this alcoholic bottle is going, as an old alchemist who's finally recreated this formula is determined to get it back. So that's all happening. However, Dallas Genoward goes missing, and part of this is set 1 year later, and the story's timelines go in and out so often that there's kind of three main periods. So the first is this turf war, or with the then with the immortality serum. The second is the search for Dallas Genoward, who went missing during that period, so you keep not knowing exactly what happened to him despite the flashbacks. It's his sister searching for him, and her intersecting with the Gandor family, as well as the Runarada family gets involved, who is responsible for potentially some deaths in the Genoward family. So it's pretty much this interplay between the newspaper, the Runaradas, the Gandors, and the Genowards. However, flashback to actually around the same time as this is happening, but set on a train, the Flying Pussyfoot, the transcontinental train that's is carrying several people in to get involved in this, including Jacuzzi Splot, who's coming to sell some explosives, Isaac and Miria, a pair of eccentric robbers who are high on life and each other and bringing joy to everyone around them. And there are two forces on this train that are trying to take it over for various reasons. One, a group called the Lemures, who are determined to free their immortal master. Again, tied in with the serum of immortality. However, they didn't count on the fact of the Russo family being on there, particularly the psychotic lad Russo, who's pretty much just left his family to go on here just to go on a killing spree, So, with the rest of the train caught in the middle. However, all the violence on the train between these three factions, really. Jacuzzi's group, who's trying to do a small hold-up, and the two warring mob family, and the Lemures and the Russo family, seems to have angered a potential spirit called the Rail Tracer, who's now appearing on the train to slaughter everything in its path, leaving a trail of bloody violence. And there's also a time jump back into the 1700s with where the alchemy came from in the first place, and some characters who've been around since then. There's a lot happening here. So, characters intersect, and the way the story is told, occasionally it will jump back and forth along these time periods, but you don't, other than the first episode, you aren't usually lost. The first one's deliberately confusing, as you don't know anything about what's going on, as the characters just happen to be casually discussing the events. And then you'll actually follow a character for a good while, and then you'll follow a different character for the next leg of it. For example, you'll see Jacuzzi running down the train, bump into Lad Russo, apologize, say, excuse me, I've got to go find the conductor and go running off, and you'll keep following Jacuzzi as he's searching for the conductor to warn him about the rail tracer. Meanwhile, Lad Russo, then the next episode will show that same interaction with those two bumping, and Lad Russo watching him run off, and I know that guy, and then continues on to go about his business, and we follow him for a while. A lot happens. There's pretty much everyone on the front here. You see more than a dozen some characters, and almost all of them are major players in the events. Some characters in the background, less so, but just this many moving parts, there is a lot of notables. Thankfully, the theme song heavenly reminds you of who everybody is, because it can be a lot to break into. The 1920s jazz soundtrack works very well. And this actually is a series I've only seen dubbed, mostly because the dubbing is really good here. And for the Jersey accents alone, it works really well. So the Mafia accents really sell it, either the Jersey or the Italian ones on there. It really adds something. There are so many really likable and interesting characters that it is really engrossing. This collection here also includes the 3-episode OVA, which continues in the aftermath of the main series and introduces a new character, Graham Spector, a disciple of Lad Russo, who is even more insane and goes on to these constant insane monologues of contradiction as he swings around a giant wrench. And it's pretty much him facing off against Jacuzzi and several of their other characters. While the characters aren't directly involved, they're off playing dominoes. A lot's going on. So, I highly recommend Baccano. For me, this is a 10. It's endlessly watchable. I've rewatched the series at least 5 times. And even with the OVA, it's only 16 episodes total, so it's a nice, quick sit, and it goes very fast. The action and comedy work great. It is one of my favorite anime series, hands down. Alright, so, Baccano, 10 out of 10. Check it out if you can. Highly recommend it, so always worth it. Also, the series does tie very loosely into another anime called Durarara, which 2 characters in here have a brief cameo in it because, they're immortal. So, yeah, they, of course, they're showing up in modern day. And it's kind of made by the same original author. So, personally, I like Baccano a bit more than Durarara because while there are the same kind of a lot going on as characters are intersecting, it's a lot longer, and I think Baccano being as tight as it is really makes it work. I know the original light novel series goes on for quite a ways, but this self-contained works very well. Alright, boy. Catch you later.